and the countryside not caring, the place names all hazed over with flowering grasses, and fields shadowing doomsday lines under weed's restless silence. The differently dressed servants with tiny rooms in huge houses, the dust behind limousines. The third stanza leaves the world of the town, city behind and moves on to the countryside. In the countryside, we see huge houses, mansions, and these huge houses, their place names, they are all hazed over with flowering grasses. That means when the owners of the houses have left these houses to recruit themselves in the army, these houses, their names are all covered with the overgrown grass. It shows that the houses are not being taken care of. And the shadowing doomsday lines, they are covering the wheat that is ready now to be harvested. And the wheat's restless silence, here it's very significant. The silence that looms over the countryside due to inactivity. And the shadowing doomsday line, they refer again to the Norman conquest of 1066, when a vast audit of English towns and cities and villages was undertaken under the conqueror who was called William of Normandy. And this record was called as the Doomsday Book. The Doomsday Lines refer to the demarcations that were made according to this audit that was conducted in 1066. It also tells us that Larkin here is suggesting 1000 years of unaltered English history and social structure, which is now going to be undermined and destroyed by the First World War. The huge houses that he refers to, whose place names are all hazed over, these huge houses have got a hierarchy of servants who are dressed up in the liveries. And this also shows that these huge houses are owned by the feudals. It again points to the aristocratic class, which is a very important part, which was a very important part and parcel of the English society. Then the dust behind limousines, it also tells us about the unattended huge cars owned by these landlords. These cars are also unattended because again the owners are not there. And the silence that looms over this countryside is very disturbing. Never such innocence, never before or since, has changed itself to past without a word. The men leaving the gardens tidy, the thousands of marriages lasting a little while longer, never such innocence again. The final stanza, it sort of concludes the entire poem. And here Larkin is pondering over the change that is brought about by the war. The innocent way of life, which was a part of the pre-war world and which is outlined in the previous stanzas, in the first three stanzas of the poem, has gone forever. And in this stanza, Larkin gives us the example how this world has lost its innocence. The men leaving the gardens tidy. It's very significant here. The men left the gardens tidy with the hope that they will be returning back very soon. The first stanza, where the men were shown grinning, where the men were showing as if they were looking for an adventure, probably thought that they would come back very soon. They did not realize that many of them would not come back. Many of them, even if they would come back, would be crippled for whole life. Some would probably lose their mental balance as well. So this is how, without a word, that innocence, which was a trait of the pre-World War, it was lost. Thousands of marriages lasting a little while longer. This refers to both the worlds, that is the pre-war world and the post-war world. In the pre-war world, divorce was not very common. That's why the marriages they lasted uh, quite long. And in the post-war world, thousands of marriages lasting a little while longer because the marriages they lasted till the wives would receive the news of the death of their husbands. So it's a reference to both the scenarios here. And then he says that never such innocence again. So the culminating point of the poem is reached by at the last line, that what price this world had to pay due to this war and what price the English society had to pay was that it lost its innocence. The world, which was a traditional world, which had social, moral, religious values, there was a disintegration of these values as a result of this war. This poem, that is 1914, it might be viewed as a war poem, but a war poem which analyzes and explores the impact of war from a civilian perspective. It's a studied analysis, not necessarily of a golden pre-war period, but of an attitude to the past which we are all prey to. The notion that the past was always better and more innocent. And here we are again reminded of the romantic poet Wordsworth and all the other romantics who cherish the past. So here in this poem we feel that Larkin is being nostalgic about the pre-war golden Britain period when Britain it enjoyed a glory, when it enjoyed a power, when its moral, social, religious values were intact. Thank you.